I survived this attack. Just by virtue of watching a golfer play golf. Every day after that is a blessing. So I'm always optimistic.
My guest today is retired Command Sergeant Major Bart Womack. Bart's 29-year Army career is a true mix of fascinating experiences, from patrolling the DMZ between North and South Korea, serving as a drill sergeant, leading the legendary 101st Airborne, and serving in the historic 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Army's oldest active duty unit and sentinels at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. During his time in service, Bart was the target of an embedded enemy who attacked his unit while they were preparing for combat in Kuwait.
I trusted the oath, I trusted the uniform, and it backfired. The trust went out the window right away.
Bart's since been raising awareness for the victims of that attack and spreading the message on the need for maintaining situational awareness in a challenging time.
If it happened inside the close-knit brotherhood of the armed forces, it can happen in any campus, community, or organization at any time and anywhere. Domestic terrorism is our new reality.
And now, here's Bart Womack. We'll get kicked off. Could you just provide a quick background on who you are and your career and how you got to where you are now?
Wow. So Bart Womack, Command Sergeant Major, retired United States Army, where I served for 29 and a half years. I won't tell you the year I joined. You go do your own math on that one. I had a very fulfilling career, I would say. I don't think about it till times like this when people start asking me questions about it. I have to talk about it. Aside from that, yeah, I did my job and I do it again. But in the end, it was very rewarding. I think it has made me the person that I am today. I'm very thankful for that and grateful for that.
You have a lot of different military experiences, a lot of different areas that you were at, overseas deployment, in training, helping, raise up the next generation of soldiers. Sounds like a storied military career, and also a couple, historic units, right? The 101st, I don't know what the unit is, but the guards at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Covers a lot of ground. And then we were just talking before we started filming, taking that expertise to like Hollywood and helping in the entertainment industry as an advisor, and then a lot of your post-military career work, especially the stuff that you talk about in your book. We have a lot to cover. One of the things I love to understand from people who enter into a career of public service and who stay in the career is what initially started you down that path. Like, what initially started you down the path of public service?
Man, I wish I had this great story for
Right.
you from the heart and the
Yeah.
flag and everything. It ends up being that way, but that's not how it started. So I graduated high school at 17 years old. My birthday's in December. So I told myself I'm going to wait a year before I go to college. So I'd always worked. From age 13 on, I always worked. Love having my own money. So I had a job, and it was pretty far out. So I had a car that I drove. So my mother had a car, but she didn't drive. She had a driver's license, didn't drive. So it was really kind of my car. She just wouldn't let me say that it was my car. So I drove that to work. And then my next oldest brother wrecked the car. So I had to start taking the bus. So it's about this time of year in November. And I was taking the bus from work. I would transfer downtown to catch the bus to go to my house, right? So I decided I was going to walk and not wait at that particular stop. I'm going to walk ahead and catch the bus there. And in doing so, it's cold in Columbus, Ohio. And I passed by the recruiter's office and said, hey, let me go in here and get warm. I know at least the lights on and I'll get warm. I didn't drink coffee, but maybe have cocoa or something, but it's heat, I'll get warm. So I knew what the drill was going to be because recruiters had been in the hallways at the high school and all that, trying to get you to join and everything. So I knew I had to listen to all the spiel, but my modus operandi was to get warm.
Get
So I
warm, maybe
went
get
in
some
there.
hot chocolate.
That's
I like
right.
it.
So he served me up and he talked me up, and I just listened. Okay, thanks. And then I left. The luxury at that particular time, I was 17. So you could pressure me all you want to, because my mother would have to say yes.
Yeah.
So it's back in the days, there weren't cell phones, and he would call and I'd answer the phone up. My mother's not home, and she wasn't home. But every time he called, she just wasn't home. And that was the truth. She wasn't home at a particular time. But like I said, it was November. My birthday is December. So it finally came around. I told my mother what was going on. She said, well, you'll be 18 here in a few weeks. You can make the decision on your own. And then he stopped calling. So the year turned and I finally said, okay, let me look into this thing. I said, let's go take the test and everything. So I go take the test and had to take off work for that for half a day or something like that. I go back to work. As soon as I get back to work, get one of those slips that says, what? You're going to be laid off. I'm like, perfect. I'm joining the military in 2 weeks anyway.
Help make the decision right there for you.
There you go.
I'm surprised he didn't have like a countdown on the side of his wall, like when Bart turns 18. He's calling. Trying to be like, all right, now I can really pin him once he's 18. Like make the call.
Yeah,
man.
maybe he did.
So we were talking about that moment, and you kind of said, no, there wasn't really anything
right
on that. And you had just mentioned, your older brother also, but you said 19 years of difference between you?
19 years age difference. And he was in the Navy. So I never really heard anything about those stories. I probably saw him in uniform once or something like that. So it wasn't an influence at all to say, oh, my brother did it, so I am.
Okay. You were working jobs, you said, since 13?
And probably before that, because I had a paper route. Paper route, for your audience, you have to Google that and see what that is.
The thing that we used to have.
Yeah.
Were you just doing little odd jobs, or were you just doing a paper route?
So it was a
13
paper
to
route,
17?
and then from the paper route, it was I had a friend whose dad somehow was in charge of the I'm just gonna say beverage service or whatever at bingo. So we would go to bingo, and our job was to push around the cart with beverages and little snacks or whatever, and people would buy them or whatever, and they pay for it and give you some tip money and all that, and but it was good tip money. So the risk there was, what do you think the risk was?
That sometimes people don't tip.
Smoke.
Oh, well, man, that's so far out of my brain now.
Yeah, it was the smoke. I mean, you left all your clothes just full of smoke, but it was good money. And then that led to another job. So I always worked. Yeah.
Now, did you have a career idea of what you wanted to do before the military thing?
No, I didn't. That whole year of waiting to go to college was supposed to help with that.
Yeah.
In addition to waiting to begin this, education process, but I didn't have a clue. I didn't know. And, my father died when I was 1, so I didn't have that male influence. Now my mother worked for the government for 35 years, so that was in the house. It's kind of funny. Fast forward here to when I finally did retire from the military. I remember I'm standing there and she's in a crowd, and I'm giving my talk, and it hit me then that it's no wonder I spent all this time in the military. I had that influence of government service.
What did your mom do?
Wow, what did she do? I think it was something in logistics or something like that. Yeah.
Was she in like a particular department or a particular agency, or did she bounce around?
She didn't bounce around. It was at the same location for all those years. That was in Columbus, Ohio. At the time, it's called DCSC. Don't ask me what that means now. I can't remember, but it's still there. The name's changed just a little bit. They moved around some of the letters, but they're still kind of the same.
So you turn 18, you enlist, and you ship off.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what your first experiences in the military were like, that basic training experience.
Yeah. I had ran cross country in high school, played tennis. Now I was 5'3" as a junior, like second semester. And then I grew over the summertime. But I'd always been an athlete, played football growing up. It was a shame that I was so small. I mean, I'm 5'3" and like 110. So football is kind of out of the question. I remember I thought about the team. I said, what's the weight limit? Because there's always weight limits before that, right? And there is no weight limit. I was like, oh, hell no, I can't do that. Like these helmets aren't built good enough to be able to do that.
Big football players too.
So that was out. But in terms of being, athletic, that was always there. So a lot of people don't think about the military as being an athletic sport, but you kind of need that. So I was always good at that. So everything we did physically was not necessarily a huge challenge. Now, drill sergeants can make you do push-ups for 5 hours and all kinds of crazy stuff. But aside from that, it was all doable. One moment I remember in basic training was when the airborne recruiter showed up. Now, I didn't know nothing about the military, so I didn't know anything about airborne either. And we sit in this briefing, you see the guys jumping out of airplanes. Oh, that looks cool or whatever. Although that's who jumps out of an airplane. And then they keep on talking, and then they say the magic words, $55 extra a month. I'm
Bonus
in.
money.
Sign
Bonus
me up.
money.
I'm
Yeah.
going to go do that. but at the time, what I was intrigued by the money. It was more money. So if that's what it takes to get more money, I'm in.
Did you, so when you enlist, you
Mm.
get a job assignment.
Yeah.
What were you originally going to do?
Originally, I was a personnel records specialist. Now, one thing that recruiter did say was, you don't want to be outside shining tanks. And he was right. I didn't want to be outside shining a tank. So I went a different route, and then later changed over to infantry, because I would sit in there and just kind of look out the window like, I want to be outside. I don't want to be in here. I want to be outside. So it's kind of, it feels strange to have chose that in the very I'm sorry. It feels strange to have chosen that in the very beginning, knowing that I'm kind of an outside person. So
Yeah,
it
but
all
like you
worked
said, you
out.
kind of went in, doesn't sound like much of a plan, just kind of
No.
like, I'm going to go in and see where this takes me.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting how some people, so I talked to a lot of people on this podcast, some who have had like a clear idea of what they wanted
Yeah.
to do, but I think probably more who are like, listen, I just went and I was going to play by ear and figure it out. And then the places that they end up can be so shocking. You assume, that was always in their plan. Like you end up as a command sergeant major, which of the 101st Airborne, which is a prestigious unit as I understand it,
Right.
which means that's a prestigious position, to get there sort of like by happenstance of, hey,
Yeah.
one day I was walking by a recruiter's office and I decided to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Was there something about the military that, made you thrive in a way you hadn't before?
Mm. I mean, just the challenges and everything that's there for you. Because it's a big military and there's a lot of stuff to do if you want to do it. And it hit me that you had to be good, or you had to make yourself good. Like there's certain gates for everything. Whether it was, I would say, academically in terms of your GT score, your scoring, to continuously improve that, because that gives you other opportunities. Military schooling, to thrive to do those things at the right time and move on to the next one and the next one. So all those things were there for every member of the military to do. But you had to have something, I would say, inside of you to thrive and want to be better than the next guy. So once you learn that it's very competitive and the whole thing is like a competition, if you will, and if you're competitive, you can get to those places. Then it was kind of game on. The light turned on very, very quickly. I watched people that, even if I didn't know them, I could see them from afar and they look the part. And then if I could see them play out the part even better, can we strive to be that? Let me improve my uniform to look like that, my stature to look like that, all things to get to that particular point and then grow from there. So I was a drill sergeant at just 5 years in the military. 5 years. That I would not even advise the military does that today, and I don't think they do. I mean, I was 23 years old, but I had aspiration to be a drill sergeant, just by what, not from the ones when I was in basic training, just from other people, once I had gotten out and been in the Army a little while, to see that they had been a drill sergeant, and that's how they carry themselves, and that was something to emulate and be. And then to know that I can be. I don't have to wait. I don't have to be their age. I don't have to be their rank. It can be this rank and do it. Boom. So I did. So, but that was the thing early on. And now you're leading people as a drill sergeant. You're training people from coming right off the streets, and now you have to make them a soldier that's make them a soldier that's going to go out there and function in everyday Army.
5 years feels like a tight timeline for someone, again, with like no military background coming in.
Yeah.
You must have jumped just headlong into it and just gone, full speed.
I think like I said, I learned it was competitive, and then just to be the best, by the way you look. I think it starts with that because that's the outward appearance. So everyone perceives that you know everything just by the way you look. But then on the inside, you have to educate yourself for everything else.
We in popular media, there's so many movies and things that portray like the basic training experience from the recruit side, the fear and all the craziness and all that that goes on. You don't get a lot from the drill instructor perspective. I'm sure there's media out there where they show a bit of that, but what's it like on the other side of that experience, being the drill instructor, creating that environment and trying to train these people and lead them through this stressful event in their lives?
Yeah, I started smiling as soon as you said drill instructor in movies because as I was going through drill sergeant school, that's when the movie An Officer and a Gentleman came out. So I'm thinking, Lou Gossett. Okay, I'm going to be Lou Gossett. Lou Gossett is a fictional character in this fictional, story, but he was taught well and he played it well. And I knew the time from being in basic training with my drill sergeants and the things that they did, but they weren't even close to him. So I had a visual. I lived the visual through my drill sergeants, but then I saw that thing. Now he got away from stuff that you can't do, but it was just kind of ironic that I'm going through drill sergeant school and that movie comes out at the same time. So you can't do the stuff that he did. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that you are training people to become something. I was that person, didn't know what I wanted to do and had to go through the same training. So you have to keep that in mind. You're trying to make them as tough as you possibly can in that environment. You have to keep that in mind. You're trying to breed esprit de corps and teamwork and all those things as well. So it's not about, let me just break you so you quit. That's not helping our fighting force if I make everybody quit.
Right.
Yeah, I can do that, but what are we gaining as a military if that's all we're doing? So that's not the goal either. Now, there's certain schools down the road where that is the modus operandi because we only want the best, we don't want quitters, but that's not it. So my thing was, you can't quit. It's not even hard enough for you to quit. We're going to make it work for you with whatever you have. So that's what I would say. That's what it looks like. Yeah, it's going to be tough. They expect it to be tough, so I'm going to give you that. But I'm also going to make it fair for you.
How long were you drill sergeant for?
2 years.
Okay, and after doing that, where'd you go next?
Went straight to Korea, and it was a unit called JSA, Joint Security Area. That's the one that when you turn on the TV or they have the peace talks, that's the JSA. So half of it is on the North Korea side, other half's on the South Korea side. In that building where they have the talks, there's a table. Let's say the table's like this. Then there's a wire that goes down the middle of the table. You would be on the north side. I'm on the south side. That wire, those wires that went all the way across the table represented the line that you don't cross. So when we were up there guarding, we had tours. We would go into the building and then lock the north side door so no one could come in, but they didn't try to come in. And when they had tours, they do the same thing in that building.
Interesting. So you've been at the line of North Korea and South Korea. Did you ever tow over it? Just tempted to be like, I've been in North Korea now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be tempted to. I'd be like, listen, because I want to be able to say that, that I've technically been there.
So there's a couple of stories from there. And that, in addition to that, we had the responsibility to patrol the area in the DMZ on our side, supposedly. So in that unit, we would, this was the structure. So we had a platoon. The platoon was about 36 to 40 people, to include the platoon sergeant, platoon leader, and you had squad leaders. But our platoon had half Korean soldiers, excuse me, half Korean soldiers and half GI soldiers. So now these soldiers were called KATUSAs, which is Korean Augmented to the United States Army. Now the South Korea had its own army called the ROK Army, Republic of Korea Army. These guys were not a part of that. In fact, they slid by that by virtue of having the families had status and all that stuff and money, so they were able
Interesting.
to become a Katusa versus a rock soldier.
So it was like sought after.
Yeah, rock soldiers were harder, but these guys, oh, we're rock soldiers. You're not rock soldiers. Sit down, shut up. Anyway, so that's the way our platoon was structured. So we would spend 2 days north, what we call it. That's in the JSA itself. So the JSA is responsible for the security of people when they come up there for tours. And then you had 2 days that you did training, 2 days off, and then 2 days on QRF. So the QRF building is probably about a mile south from the JSA. So that quick reactionary force would respond if there was something happening in the JSA. So when we're on QRF, most of the time we would have some type of patrol at night. And but every now and then we'd have one on the training days to different areas as well. So I remember this one, and this is kind of a special patrol that they said. So we were in the back of like a local Korean's pickup truck. I want to say it's probably about 7 of us. It wasn't a full squad. And we entered into an area about 5 p.m., 1700 hours, and we're just waiting for dark. In dark, we go out, and because it was believed at that particular point, the North Koreans would come across the line. And so we were going to go find out. So we get, it gets dark, we set up an ambush, and you got Claymore mines out there and all that. I remember it was like, I think it was June.
So this is preparing for like real combat. Like
this is real.
Yeah.
You have real Claymore mines. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
This isn't like we're going to catch you guys over the line and we're going to yell at each other.
No,
this is
if you come across the line, we're going to get you on the other side somehow. Yeah. Let's put it like that. We're going to blow you back over to the other side. Yeah. But it was summer. I remember that. And after you land in this ambush and, you can't make noise because they'll hear you and all that, right? So you're laying there and mosquitoes are just like in there and you can't do that. Yeah. Oh, man. I remember leaving out there. Just So we're laying there and because they were believed to be, Intel said they were coming across. So now you're looking through these PBS 5s and that's supposed to be the updated technology of night vision. And it's 2 a.m. and like, I think I see somebody. No, I know I see somebody. And as a squad leader, you have your hand on this, it's called a clacker for the Claymore mine. And you better be sure because, is it potential for World War III? I don't know if it's quite World War III, but it's going down. Am I sure? And you turn. So I don't know if I saw anybody or not, so I didn't. Because once I did that, machine guns are going to go off. It's all, and I'm trying to get the person next to me, but they're too far away just to confirm, do you see what I see? And so that didn't happen. But there was something that did happen. So it's Thanksgiving, 1984. I know I joined the Army at 12. I lied about the whole 18 years.
Yeah.
It's 1984 and it's Thanksgiving. And in the JSA, there are no tours because it was a holiday. We just had a platoon sergeant meeting and that ended and we hear pap, pap. And it's a gunshot, not just someone hammering. And you're not supposed to have automatic weapons up there, but we know they have them, and they knew we had them. We scrambled to get all our stuff, and we're outside, and gunshots are being fired, and there's this firefight back and forth between us and them. They had crossed over into our side, and we're just firing back and forth. Now, where our position was, it was lower, so all the bullets just kind of went over our head. Most of us are under this deuce and a half. You have 2 deuce and a half parked there underneath there for cover. And they are on some higher ground in what was called the sunken garden that's in the JSA. So they're firing from there. And the bullets are just kind of going over here, like I said. So we can't hit them and they can't hit us. So I take my team leader, we go upstairs into our building, knock out a window, and we're trying to put a round over in the sunken garden area where we think the fire is coming from. So he has a 203. So it's like, shoot it in this direction here. Just don't hit the
And it's
tree.
like is that like the rifle mounted grenade?
Yep. Don't hit the tree. You know, because it's November and, you know, foliage is off and all that. You got the twigs. Don't hit that, because if that deflects, it could go straight down and hit our people, right? Don't hit the tree. First round, then hit the big part of the tree, but just kind of, you know, deflects a little bit. I don't know where the hell it goes. Okay. So I remember hitting him upside his helmet. That's the one thing I said not to do. All right, so shoots again. And then you hear yelling. Shooting that same spot again. So that pretty much ended the firefight after that. So why did the firefight happen in the first place? Well, the North Korean side had a tour. They had their guard, and there was 2 people on the tour. One guy was taking a picture of the other guy in the guard. So their backs were to the south.
Yeah.
And as his buddy was taking a picture, the guy took off running toward the south. And then the guard started chasing him. And then everyone started coming out, and that's what started his firefight. In the end, that guy had planned to go from China to North Korea to defect for like 2 years. That was his plan. But that's why the
Did he make it over?
He made it over. You know, he took him down south and was interrogated and all that type of stuff. His only regret was that in the end, we lost one of our, I told you our platoon had, you know, half GIs, half Korean soldiers. One of the Korean soldiers got shot and killed.
What's the 80s, right? Very different time. What blew my mind and why I asked, like, oh, so that this was after or before what I think now is there's a lot of like symbolic going on in that border.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a lot of active firefights. I know there's still, like, when defectors happen, the North Koreans try to control that, but I don't think there's a whole lot of shooting back and forth over that border now, is there?
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I wouldn't say there was a lot of it happening then. There's just those. Well, one was a patrol. Nothing ever happened. Is it being patrolled? I would say yes.
Yeah.
But that incident was. I told you how it happened. The guy had planned effect. North Korea didn't know that.
Yeah.
Of course, South Korea didn't know that. So you're going to have those. I'm going to say you're going to have, but that was just a chance thing that happened.
Yeah, a lot of people, myself included, probably haven't thought that, you know, that there was potential for real conflict right there. Like, a lot of it just seems like a lot of posturing.
Mm-hmm.
You see when they do the tours and people go up there and, you know, the soldier from both sides is in the room and just kind of looks like a lot of posturing, you know?
Yeah, no, you know, I guess year and a half, maybe 2 years ago now, we had a soldier from the south side defect to the north. So with that being said, people are going to be people. We don't know what the hell's going on in their head about why they're doing what they're doing. So as long as there's people doing it, anything can happen anytime.
That is a fascinating experience to have had, to like be there at that wild sort of hotspot of geopolitics, that line.
That was supposed to be an easy day.
Yeah, right.
Because there's no tours, you know, so it's like, oh, it's just, you know, play cards or whatever. There's nothing going on this day.
Because you just got to be ready for anything, because it could pop off whenever.
And after that, I mean, that was November. My tour was going to end in July. So I still had another 8 months of being there. And you had the North Korean, they would pump out propaganda like every day. And now it got intensified. Of course, you understand what the hell they're saying in the first place, right?
Yeah.
But our Korean soldiers did. Oh, I should mention that during all that, no Korean soldier came outside to fight.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and in addition to us being outnumbered, just purely outnumbered up there, we could see there's this one road from the checkpoint that went all the way to Pyongyang, and it's had like a UPS truck, just trucks and trucks coming down that road going to the GOC. And I remember there's this little peephole from our building you could see to the kind of backside of the GOC, and they had them packed in there like sardines, and they were coming out of that truck. I'm like, okay, we're a little bit outnumbered here.
Right. And so there was a time, I assume then in the 80s, there was a real thought they might actually cross the line and reopen real conflict.
I don't remember hearing any intel of that being a threat.
Yeah.
Everything's a possibility.
Sure.
Yeah.
What were their, so when the intel said they were potentially crossing the line, what were,
Well, that was them patrolling, and intel said that during their patrols they would come across. They wouldn't get deep, but they would come across.
would their use case just to be kind of just harass? Is that kind of what the intel would think they were doing? I mean, why would they patrol across a line? Is it just to like project or try to catch somebody?
Just because they thought they could get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of test on the line. I guess,
Exactly.
literally.
Yeah.
So you do that in Korea for a couple of years. Where do you go next?
And from there, I go to the old guard. So one guy that was in our platoon, he had been in old guard before. So he was going back there, and he had talked to me about it a little bit. So he influenced me to go. So I put in a packet and was accepted. So I went to the old guard after that.
So we do drill instructor or drill sergeant, Korea, have
Yeah.
that wild experience,
Yeah.
and then to the old guard.
Right.
And I've, I know very little about the old guard. I have a personal friend who was, and I've heard him describe the intensity and the prep and the hours and the difficulty and the discipline of that unit and how strict the standards and everything were. I think at one point he told me about like very strict weight and strict like dimensions he had to have to his body, and how, they're taking a lighter to the uniform to burn all the little bits of thread off and all that. I mean, that sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, but I had been a drill sergeant, so the standards were already high. This was just a different way, I would say. It wasn't something that was a shocker to me, because I'd already been a drill sergeant. So it wasn't that difficult to me. You had to learn to march their way. You had to learn how to do drill and ceremony their way. But keep in mind, a drill sergeant teaches drill and ceremony. So all you're talking about is just this way. And it's not that much different, but it's enough to the person who especially hadn't taught it. Now, this guy I was telling you about, his name is Wayne King. I'll see him at this reunion as well. But he, like as soon as you get there, you go to new man training so you can learn the old guard way, right? And I would finish new man training. Like, oh, you have to go to that, so you can't get out of that, but I'll show you the real stuff. So after new man training, I would be outside doing more, but he was teaching me the sword. So I was a squad leader now, and the technique and everything of the sword, which I'm not teaching in new man training, was something totally different. So when I finished new man and got to my unit of assignment, I was already, a step ahead. So now I'm already trained how to march with the sword, just like my platoon sergeant was. And nobody was getting that. And I remember when he was teaching me outside there, people from the company looking across the street like, who's that? Who's he have out there? Who's that guy? Because I hadn't been signed a company yet, right? So I was already like a step ahead before I even got, to my unit.
That role seems to take a ton of like preparation and practice. I've seen it a couple of times, and I've had the privilege of going to Arlington National Cemetery to see that, and it's always so precise, and it's a spectacle in that like it's super, it's somber, but they're so on point. It's such a fascinating thing to see all the movement, and they're doing all the stuff with the rifle and everything. I imagine that just takes a ton of practice and prep.
Yeah. It's timing, it's precision, it's all those things. And you can have a brain fart, one person mess it up, you're out there for another hour just trying to get everyone synchronized and all that stuff. So yeah, you put in a lot of work for it, but then you get used to doing it. And mistakes are happening less and less if they happen at all. And when the mistake has been made, but the crowd probably can't see anything at all, when a cut's late or whatever. So I'll go to ceremonies and stuff now, and they have the colors, and I'll tell whoever's in charge of the colors ahead of time, I'll be watching you.
Put a little pressure on them,
because they kind of always mess it up. Like always, there's always going to be something messed up. So I tell them I'm going to give you a grade afterward. And I may go to a formal, it's a military formal, and I'm watching you, and I'll give you a grade afterward. Okay. No one gets an A. They barely get a B minus.
Well, I'm sure there's
Yeah.
always something to improve on.
And I don't tell them who I am. I don't tell them about my experience. I don't tell them anything.
They
Just
can
tell them
probably
it'll be
tell a
great.
little bit though. There's probably something in like
Yeah.
your posture, the way you carry
Yeah, well, who
yourself.
goes up to the color guard and tell them I'm
Exactly.
gonna be great?
They must know, like, okay, that's a guy who must know something.
Must know
'cause
something. Yeah.
he's coming at me.
Right. But they're coming to me afterward. How do we do? You don't want to know.
Yeah, yeah. You just keep practicing.
I appease them because they're out there doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a tough to have all that work and all that precision, and also in that environment, it's all weather, all times, right? They don't take time off. Someone's always there, as I understand it, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's having been there, and maybe people haven't been there, but I think it's well known at this point that the old guard is there. It's a very somber experience, and when you think about what that represents and what they're doing, it's a fascinating bit of Americana, I guess, that we have that, and the honor, the homage we pay to the unknown soldier, and how many there are. I know there's not that many left of unknown soldiers out there, but yeah, very somber to go see that.
So I'll get into that particular part because I didn't address that. I was waiting for you to bring it up. Thank you. You said the magic words. So because when you first get assigned, just in a regular what we call line company. So in those line companies, you have squad leaders and platoon sergeants, you have the ceremony responsibility, but you also have your infantry responsibility. So I always thought that those soldiers, they're chosen. You have to have a certain certain scores to get into the old guard, which should breed a different level of intellect. Should. That's always a double-edged sword. So you have that, but I also thought that they were pretty good, better than average soldiers, because you had to not only perfect that ceremonial stuff, you have to go to the field and do that stuff as well to the same standard. It's not that you go out there just because you do your primary job is the ceremony stuff. Then when you go to the field, like you don't know what you're doing, and no, don't work like that.
But you still have to be a functional soldier.
Yeah, yeah. I'm more than functional. Yeah. Now, when the balloon goes up, no one's going to go to the old guard first and say, "Hey, we need this infantry unit." But it has happened lately. During the wars, some of them have deployed to do certain things. But I went to the National Training Center from the old guard. I went to Ranger School from the old guard. So I didn't. From my soldiers in my platoon, we're an infantry unit first. It's called the 3rd United States Infantry for a reason. Then it says old guard. So we're infantry first, and then we do the ceremony stuff. It may look like we do the ceremony stuff first because that's what you see. You're not in the field, but we're going to be very, very good at this. So that's why I say that they're better than average in compared to the rest of the infantry, because they have to do both of those things at the same level those guys who do it all the time.
How does the the mission of that old guard affect that ability to be above average? I have to imagine something about being there and being responsible for that duty to protect that tomb. Does that create an additional level of inspiration amongst that unit?
Yeah. Now that's the regular line company and line platoon. Now, shifting over to the Tomb of Unknown Soldier, that's different, but that's all you're doing. So the specificity of everything there is under a microscope, as if everyone out there, that the public watching that can see every little thing going on, and they know if you did it right or did it wrong. They don't, but we view it as if they did. And actually, it's not for them, it's for the unknowns. Now we know the unknowns can't see us. However, it is that respect and honor for them that we don't mess anything up and highly scrutinize. It's almost like, NFL team, you mess up something, you fumble, and I got other running backs, you might not get back in. So you mess up something out there. It could be very, very little. And then you're not walking the rest of the time, this particular day. And we'll evaluate it in training to see if you get back out there again. But you're earning your way out there. It's like you're earning your way on that field, on that roster. You are earning your way out there. And if you don't do the right things to garner that, then you're not going outside. So I remember when I was a leaf commander, we had 5 people, I think, on our relief. Should have had about 9, and we had 5. But we really had like 4.5 because this guy is taking him a long time to get up to standard and all that. So he'd get out there at 8 a.m. where there's not many people out there, if any at all. That way, if he messed up, although he shouldn't be messing
Got
up,
some time to work it out.
those people can't see it or whatever. And then you're out there at the last guard change where the same type of thing going on. So, but throughout the rest of the day, it can't put you out because you're not up to standard. You know, that first one and that last one is good practice outside versus, you know, inside, or what we call the catacombs there. So, but you know, you're fumbling, so you don't get in the game. Yeah. So that duty is you know, the highest that I had throughout the whole military. That's the best duty of all my time. So it wasn't just that of the relief commander, but it also extended to, you know, being a sergeant of guard. We were in charge of the whole thing.
When you were there, you know, I know they do a lot of ceremonies where big public figures come around, including, you know, at times the president is there. Did you ever get to interact with?
Yeah. So who was it? I haven't messed up these presidents' names. Only because let me think about it. Herbert Walker Bush. Is that right? Yeah. Was president, and Bill Clinton was president, and then Vice President Quell. That was my interactions of. So when you're sergeant of guard, when you're turning your television on Memorial Day and Veterans Day, then you saw me for 2 of those years.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought I saw you away, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Did you ever get to like exchange words with someone like
no
President Bush? Or?
No, I mean they only show up when it's like right time for that particular part to happen. And usually in those days they move right around to the other side of the amphitheater to you know, have an address or whatever. So no interaction.
Do you ever? I meant to ask this when we were talking about North Korea. Did you ever get to interact with anyone on the other side of that line?
No.
Because I imagine that was probably from their side tightly controlled. Like they wouldn't ever want you guys to exchange words.
What were we told? I don't remember us being told anything about interaction with them. First of all, you got the language barrier, right? They're still human beings. So human beings are going to do human being stuff. And like sometimes, I mean, they were very young kids. They were very young kids. And because North Korea and we're South Korea side is kind of taught to hate. But they all of them hate you. Yeah, I say no. But sometimes they try to spit on you, you know, so you knew you can only get so close because that would just walk up to the line. You know, it's a line. You're not going to cross the line. You're not going to cross the line. You just like look and you get a little closer, try to make, I don't care, make them do something with their face or whatever. It's not like they're going to draw the pistol and shoot at you or whatever, because we had one too. So that's not going to happen, but it's just get close. Just let me see. Let me look the enemy in the eye and just see. That's why I say that, you know, just very, very young kids. Now, you may know at a certain time or a certain time of day or whatever that it might have been a certain guard coming out, you know, routinely over the time that you go up there and, don't go to checkpoint, whatever, because that dude spits. So, you know, you wouldn't get as close.
But you could get within human contact.
You can go to the line.
Interesting.
Yeah. It wasn't like 5 feet or no one's shooting.
Yeah.
Now, there are people, you know, could that have had happened?
Sure.
It could have. Yeah.
Interesting. Just an interesting world, all that.
Yeah.
So you did your time with the old guard. Where'd you go after that?
Then went to Hawaii.
You're traveling everywhere. You're doing all kinds of stuff.
Loving this, right? Here's the thing about Hawaii. After being stationed there for 3 years, the first 2 years, I didn't sleep in my bed for 13 months because we were deployed in Haiti for 6 months. Actually, I got to Hawaii around June 1st, something like that. It was that year. And by the end of June, I was on a plane and in Malaysia for 30 days for training. So at that point, I had spent more time in Malaysia than I had in Hawaii, even though I was stationed in Hawaii. And it just kind of kept going. So that was 1 month. And then we spent 6 months in Haiti on a deployment. And then the rest of the time I was in the field of that first 2 years of not sleeping in my bed for 13 months.
So everyone's like, that's awesome. You're getting posted to Hawaii. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to enjoy the island. And
You're
nope,
gonna-
you're going to be.
You're going to enjoy the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you guys doing in Haiti? What was happening?
So that was called Operation Uphold Democracy. And the president of Haiti was ousted it was a military coup, and they just took him out of power. So our job was to get him back in power as a country. No bullets were ever fired. Now we had ammo to do it, but the military took their uniforms off, and I won't say ran, but took their uniforms off and everything. Just kind of never appeared. There was no resistance.
Interesting what's happened with I'm thinking back on Haiti. I'm trying to think on sort of the history and the situation there. It's, as I understand, it's all, pretty rough still, right? Especially after the earthquake and everything that happened down there. Still pretty unstable, which is interesting. They're right on our doorstep, so to speak.
I said after that deployment, that was 95. I said, I'll never come back here again. Not like I was trying to go there in the first place. I'll never come back here again. Well, fast forward 3 years later, I was back there because one of my units was there, and I went to see one of my units. Like, holy cow. I stopped saying never after that.
Yeah, because it sounds like, one, it's military to put you where they need you, I guess, but you're kind of just so many different military experiences, and we're just still in the 90s, right? Like, you've been in for
still in the 90s,
almost 20 years at that point.
Just
from guessing,
close, getting close. Yeah.
All right, so we're getting there. All right, so after you go to Haiti, then where do you end up after that?
So I'm still stationed in Hawaii. So back to Hawaii there, and actually stay in Haiti an extra 3 months, I think, something like that, because I took over. I was a what we call a line company first sergeant at the time, and then I stayed to become the headquarters company brigade first sergeant. So now I'm in the midst of what's happening in the brigade headquarters. That's the brigade commander. I had been in battalion, so you get to see all those kind of inner workings at that level, which helped to position me for the command sergeant major rank. And you were interacting more with officers that worked in the brigade headquarters and all that. So that's a different. I don't say different. Having that job allowed me to form those relationships and how to those inner workings of everything, even just communication even.
Yeah, I guess the job changes quite a bit at that level from like where you start,
Right?
Because the command sergeant major is an E9, is that
Correct?
so that's the highest level you can get as an
Right.
enlisted soldier.
Yeah.
When did you end up at the 101st?
So I leave Hawaii. I go from Hawaii to what's called the Florida, in the Florida phase of Ranger School. It's obviously in Florida, and I'm a first sergeant there. But the biggest part of your job, because there's not that many soldiers in your company, but all those guys are ranger instructors, and you're a ranger instructor as well. Even as a first sergeant, you go out and you grade patrols. So from that job, then I was selected for sergeant major, and then sent to the sergeant major academy in Fort Bliss, Texas, and then from there, promoted to the rank of command sergeant major, appointed to the rank of command sergeant major, and then was assigned to 101st Airborne Division.
Let's talk about the events that you discuss in your book. What happens before, what gets you in the position where you're there when that happens?
So I get to 101st in 1998. We fast forward, we have 911. I'm sorry. 911 that happens. And almost 2 years after that, we're deployed to Kuwait to fight the war in Iraq. So Kuwait is our intermediate staging base. We're positioned there. We had 3 camps there. One was Pennsylvania that we were on. There were Camp New Jersey and Camp New York. The other 2 brigades were there. So now I'm a brigade combat team sergeant major. So I'd already spent my time as a battalion sergeant major. And as I said, it's our intermediate staging base. We're there to prep for combat, get all our equipment, all this stuff. So March 22nd, which is Saturday, we had put the final touches on our orders to cross the border from our perspective. The Thursday prior, I think I said this was a Saturday. The Thursday prior was the what I call bombs on Baghdad. I think it was dubbed shock and awe. They thought Saddam Hussein was in some buildings there in Baghdad and just kind of bombed quite a bit. Our ammo just came that evening. It was dark. Our ammo came that evening. It was dark. And the commanders were directed to either put a guard on their ammo or put a guard on and issue it during daylight hours the next day, or they could turn on Humvee lights and issue at that particular time. So I had settled in for the evening. We had just gotten this little shopette where you buy snacks and all that, had all these snacks ready. In my tent, I slept with the commander, myself, and the executive officer slept in one tent. And there was a television in the tent. The unit that was there prior left this television so I could get American golf, big time golfer. So I'm watching what's called I think it's the Buick Invitational. No. Buick Invitational? I think it's called the Buick Invitational. Now it's called the R. Palmer Invitational. And Tiger Woods is just lapping the field. So I had watched Thursday night. I started watching Friday night, but fell asleep. And now it's Saturday, moving day. It started off with one stroke lead or whatever. And now he's just like birdieing 6 of the first 9 holes or whatever. So I'm sitting there. The television is probably, is off to my right here, about 5 feet. And I'm sitting at the end of the table. The tent flaps to my right, 90 degrees. And I heard it move. So I looked and realized it was the wind. So I direct my attention back to the television. I'm loading ammo and magazines there for my 9mm. The tent flap moves again. I don't pay that much attention to it. And because I'm sitting at the end of the table, I can see these sparks on the floor. So I said we're in the land of not quite right. And that's a not quite right grenade that's sparking before it explodes. Now, I'm not as brave as you, despite what you think. I didn't go over and pick it up and say, let me see what type of grenade this is. I just knew it was some type of grenade that's sparking. That was enough to get me up out of my seat, ran to the back of the tent to wake up the commander because he was asleep. So he had gone to bed at like 2,200 hours. And so to get him up, because I knew he didn't know what was going on. The XO was on the other side of the table, and he saw what I saw. So I knew he could take care of himself. But the commander who was asleep had no idea what was going on. Shake him, get him up. Hey, we got to get out of here. Grenade's about to go off up front. So the time it took me to get up and get to the back, where I was sitting, it had about as much light as we have here right now. Really bright. By the time I get back there, dark. That light's gone. You can't see anything. I get him up. Say we got to get out of here. He gets his boots on. And so I'm going to count to 3, and then we're going to go out to 10. Now, there was a front entrance back that way, and from where we were there. And there was a back, but the back was all tied up because this tent is called a temper tent. There's an air conditioning unit behind it. So that part's all roped off and can't get out that side. So I count to 3, we start running down the middle of the aisle. I'm running like this, trying to, as if this is going to protect me from a grenade blast. Yeah, actually I gave it more by doing that. And I just keep running. Now we are well past the 5 seconds it takes for a frag grenade to go off. Everything's happening so fast, you're not really counting 5 seconds. You're just, again, and I don't know what type of grenade that is. It just hadn't exploded yet. So start running, get outside the tent, then he's not there. And I'm calling for him, sir, not there. And I don't know where he is. Then I hear a gunshot. Then I hear a yell. And I know the yell is the XO. Not that I heard him yell before, I just know that it's him. I pull out my weapon, cock it. Now, when you have a magazine in your weapon and a round, you cock it, it goes ch-ch. When you have a magazine in your weapon and doesn't have a round, it just goes ch-ch. So it goes ch-ch, because I don't have ammo in there because was loading that before all this happened. So I know I'm screwed. Like, that gunshot went off. I can't do anything about it. I don't see who did the shot anyway. but more importantly, I can't defend myself or anybody else. So my mind says that there has to be ammo in the talk. Talk's about 25 yards, 15 yards behind me or so. So I run to the talk. I'm running there. Give me a weapon, give me nods, and give me ammo. So they're scurrying around doing that. I'm putting people down in position throughout the talk of all the different interests. And I finally get the ammo and stuff. I got two guys in a prone at that interest and tell them that the running password, that's like the password when you're running, is going to be, it's the Sergeant Major. So if I'm coming back in this door, I'm just going to say it's the Sergeant Major so you don't shoot me. I go back out the tent, out the talk, I should say, go to my tent. And I'm looking for the commander and XO, and they're not there. Now it's dark as I don't know what. Over there at night, it's a different type of dark.
Yeah.
You know, so these nods aren't working at all. I think you need just a sliver of a star, and there's none. And you know, I just have them hanging down because you can't. They're no good. and I'm looking for them, and I'm looking for the enemy at the same time, not knowing who the enemy is. So I figured I'm best to do one thing and not two things. So I go back to the talk. I summon someone to go to my tent in the vicinity of my tent to look for those two while I look for the enemy. And because no one was outside when I went out there, I get on the radio and call one of the units and say, we need first I say we need a squad. No, we need a platoon in the vicinity of the talk to help look for the enemy. We're under attack. A medic comes on the radio and says, do you need a FLA, a field litter ambulance? I say yes, because I knew one person had been shot. Send it in the vicinity of the talk. So I go back out and also tell the battle captain there to call division headquarters and tell them that we're under attack. I go back out and I'm challenged. Oh, who's there? And I recognize the voice. And I say, it's the Sergeant Major. And the person says, Sergeant Major, what's going on? I said, I don't know. Major Romaine has been shot. And he says, well, so has Captain Seifert. So at the time it took me on the journey I just explained, a grenade had gone off in the second tent and in the third tent, and another person had been shot. And actually one had gone off in the first tent, my tent. But I didn't hear him. I heard that one shot that happened first, but I didn't hear anything after that. So maybe you can explain that as a medical guide or something about adrenaline that I had no idea existed that could do that. And a grenade's pretty damn loud. And I didn't hear anything. So once he told me that, like who did this? I don't know who did it. We're just looking for insurgents, right? So this search begins for insurgents. So a grenade explodes at a 15-degree radius. Once the gunshot and grenade went off in the first tent, in the second tent, they had began scrambling and started getting up before the grenade came into their tent. So two people had been standing up at that time. So you can imagine 15-degree radius. If you're standing up, you're going to get, a lot of shrapnel. Now it says 15 degrees. I would say you probably need be about 12. I said that because one guy he was laying down and got shrapnel in his feet even.
That's because like it blows up and out.
Right. And he didn't wear size 22. Yeah. So a few of them got it pretty good there because they were standing up. In the next tent, people had begun to come out because now you had a gunshot, an explosion. So they had begun to come out of their tent. One person was on his way out, realized he didn't have his ammo, went back to get his ammo. When he started back out again, that's when that grenade exploded in that tent. He was 17 inches away from the grenade. And then one person was shot point blank in the back. In the fourth tent, that's where we had all the NCOs at. And they say, like, as soon as they got to their tent to come out, they saw Captain Seifert fall to the ground from that gunshot wound. He got shot point blank in the back, and someone run off. And then one of the people says he thought he saw two people just run off into the dark. So all that's happening.
Tons of confusion.
Yeah. I remember putting people in security positions throughout the talk. They would come up to me and I'd just point places for them to go. And I'm watching the perimeter kind of get formed, and you go here and just putting them all over the place so our particular area is secure as best we possibly can. Should have said this at the beginning, but so this camp is probably about 10 football fields big. That's the best way I can describe it. I think it was actually bigger. It is surrounded, except for the front gate, it's surrounded by a 12-foot dirt berm. It goes up and there's concertina wire at the top of that. I had gone out to our guard post to check on our guards to make sure they were doing all the right stuff, and they were. So I'm baffled as how the hell did insurgents get into our camp? Like, it's almost impossible for them to come up that dirt wall without sinking and without being detected ahead of time. But they apparently did it. So how did that happen? And how did our guards miss that? So I'm pissed at the guards for, I guess you had to fall asleep in order for that to happen, right? That headquarters of where we were is right smack dab in the middle of this camp. There's 5,000 people in this camp, so all our rest of our units are around us. So when I'm putting people in this perimeter, they're in the perimeter around the headquarters, and their weapons are facing out. I guess who the weapons are facing?
An insurgent.
Oh, they're facing the rest of the people in the camp.
I see what you mean.
Yeah. So, yeah, we would like to thank the insurgents if
I'm
they're
thinking
out
like
there.
it's all like, it's circled around this, like we're looking to see the enemy coming over the wire.
If they're in between that, yeah. But more importantly, our people are in between our line of fire as well. So all that's happening, at the same time, just complete and utter chaos. Oh, by the way, no sign of any insurgent. So I say something had to have changed in this camp. Like, we've been here for 20 some days. There hasn't been even a potential sign of a breach. So, but now we apparently have one, and we have casualties as a result. So something had to have changed. And then someone says, well, Sergeant Major, these interpreters came in last night. Bingo, it has to be them. Go find them. So we find the interpreters. We got them on the ground, flex cuff, hands behind their back, M4s pointing at the back of their heads. We finally get them into a secured area and interrogate them, telling them they have nothing to do with it. So now we're back to square one. And
how much time has elapsed during all that?
It's happening pretty fast. But by that time, I don't know, maybe 30, more than 30 some, 40 some minutes into it.
So a number of grenades go off. A couple people are shot.
Yeah.
There's help coming. There's
first tent, my tent, there was gunshot, grenade explosion, which is why the colonel didn't come out in the beginning. Then a grenade in the next one, grenade in the next one. And then we have all these casualties. As I told you, in the second tent, they began to stand up. So that became our casualty collection point, because they couldn't be moved. So we moved people in that area to be able to do everything. And thank God for that medic that was monitoring the radio when I was trying to get reinforcements of him saying, do you need an FLA? So that expedited things very, very quickly in terms of getting our casualties evacuated. So they're loaded onto the FLA. They're taken over to the aid station that's on the camp. A medevac helicopter comes in. First helicopter is loaded. It makes the 1 minute flight to the CASH, Combat Support Hospital. 1 minute.
1 minute.
Second helicopter lands. When that lands, they're still trying to get the unstable one stable to get them loaded. There's a huge explosion in the sky. I mean, just big old like mushroom fireball thing. Like, what the heck? So everybody kind of pauses and looks up. But more importantly, we think now we're under a coordinated attack that's happening on the ground and in the air. So after that kind of goes out and fizzles out, we still got the mission to do on the ground, still looking for insurgents with no sign of anything. And I'm thinking that if they can come in here and create all this havoc with like no sign, and we thought our special forces were special, these dudes are off
different
the chart.
level.
Yeah. And guess what? We haven't heard anything about a fighting force like this in any intel. It's going to be a hell of a fight when we cross the
Yeah,
border.
so you're thinking someone just appeared in this camp at the center,
Right.
got through all these people,
All that.
get grenades in
Right.
to their first tent targeting the command structure.
Mm-hmm.
And then what exploded in the sky?
So fast forward, we learned that was a British Tornado fighter jet returning from a mission. So our Patriot battery, which was assigned, was on another camp. So you got to imagine the whole division been in Kuwait all this time, and there hadn't been any threats. There's always like a Scud alert. So sirens were going off at this particular time. But obviously what's unique on this night is you have gunfire and you have grenades going off, and in the desert at night, that just, that sound just goes all over the place except for in Bart Womack's head. So they could hear that, and here comes this fast moving object through the sky, and they see it on the radar, so they shoot it down. They think it's a Scud, but it's a British Tornado fighter jet returning from a mission. And obviously it killed the crew. The commander was concussed from the grenade. He kind of comes out of that, and he's, in the talk, and he says, we need to get accountability of our personnel. So a call goes out on the radio for that. And we learned that one person is missing, Sauer grenades and ammunition. So now the search begins for a guy named Sergeant Akbar on this camp of 5,000. Now, obviously, we probably think that he still has his uniform on and all that type of stuff. We don't know that he's did anything. He's just missing Sauer grenades and ammunition. So, number one suspect. But how do we find him amongst these other, I guess there's not 499 left with the people being evacuated, but, still a lot of people in the camp. And we had to sort through all that to find one person. I'm going to go back to, because of that explosion in the sky, that second medevac helicopter was loaded, and because of the explosion, they're told they can't make the 1 minute flight to the cache. They have to fly to another cache, just 75 kilometers away. It arguably cost one of our guys his life.
Wow. So all this goes on in a short amount of time. You guys don't know who's doing it. Now you've got, through the accountability, which I'm sure takes some time to communicate that and to get all this back. Now you hear there's someone missing, some ammo and grenades. How do you guys go about that, finding him?
Yeah, so we hear the name. Now you have to imagine, of a unit of has 5,000 people in it, and more importantly, the headquarters, like, they don't know who Sergeant Akbar is. He's over here in this unit. He's an engineer, and most of those people have no idea who he is or what he looks like. But we hear the name, and so now we got to go tell our people on the ground what's going on. Me and Major Warren, who's the intel officer, come out of the talk at the same time. Now, he'd been going around all night, going to different bunkers there, checking on people. He'd walking around with his pistol in his hand all night. He'd go to the bunker and say, who we have here? Someone would identify themselves and a few others in the bunker. He'd give them some instructions and just kept moving around. When we came out of the talk, I go left, he goes right, and he realized that there was a bunker he hadn't gone to yet, so he wanted to go check that one. Now I go to the left, I'm telling our senior leaders on the ground that, who we're looking for. And I remember them saying that, you mean it's one of our own? It's like, yeah, that's what we know right now. And I didn't want to tell them how to approach that, how to go tell those soldiers. I didn't give any instruction on that. I let them figure that out on their own. So you think about this, you have to relay this message that you're looking for potentially one of your own, potentially is wearing the same uniform. How do you ascertain him from anybody else that's walking around?
Right.
Over 90%. I mean, if I took a look at all the numbers, we're probably in the 95 percentile range of people who hadn't been to combat before. But now you have all this stuff going on, and this suspect, how do you control people's itchy finger, or I thought it was, or whatever? Best part of that is that even though it couldn't really positively identify him, in training, we would always teach our soldiers only shoot at what you can positively identify. So it wouldn't just be, I thought, because if one shot went off, just
Oh,
like that time in the DMZ,
everyone's going
everyone's
off.
going off. Yes, right. So Major Warren walks to this bunker, and as he approached the bunker, like he had done all night, he said, "Who's here?" And when he asked who was there, the response was Sergeant Akbar. So he had the wherewithal to holster his weapon and just kept walking. Akbar didn't know we were looking for him. And then he works his way behind Akbar and takes him down. And that's how he's apprehended.
When you say takes him down, do you mean lethally or apprehended?
Oh, I'm sorry. Physically?
Okay.
Yeah. Wrestled him.
So he pins him, calls for help, I assume, and you guys wrangle this guy?
Yeah, people kind of right there as it kind of happens. So helps to apprehend him and get him flex cuffed and searched and all that. So I remember once he was flex cuffed and on the ground, someone says, "Well, Sergeant Major," they looked in the bunker. They said, "Well, here's some grenades," because he had put these grenades in a protective mask carrier. So I said, "Well, throw the grenades back into the bunker. That's the best place for those. But give me his weapon." So I smelled the weapon to see if it had been recently fired, and it had. And when you get a weapon, the first thing you do is put it on safe and clear it. But I didn't clear it. I put it on safe, but I didn't clear it. Like I said, I smelled it to see if it had been recently fired. Now I didn't clear it because just a little bit prior to this, before he told me about the grenades and the weapon, and once they had them on the ground, I took the opportunity to go back to my tent to get my gear and ammo. How about that? For my 9mm, even though I had an M4 at this time. So when I walked into my tent, I had my flashlight on, and I remember seeing a piece of expended brass outside my tent. And I knew it had to be the brass from when our XO was shot. Go inside my tent, first thing I see is our colors. The U.S. flag, our brigade colors, our regimental colors. They were in cases, and they were just all burnt in ashes. So now I'm pissed off because I'm the custodian of the colors, and you screwed up Bart Womack. So I'm pissed off about that. So as I get my gear, I start shining light in my tent. And you have to remember, at this time, I didn't know that a frag grenade went off in our tent. So I can see that first thing ended up being a incendiary grenade and just started a fire as it did. I get to the other side and see that the frag grenade had gone off, and it gone off right where I slept. So I start looking in there in this thing called a baby sack that goes over your sleeping bag, my sleeping pad, had a wall locker and a filter. All those things were blown up. And there's all these holes in my bivy sack. And now it hits me, had I not been watching Tiger Woods play golf, then I would be dead. So now I'm really pissed because this dude tried to kill me. Not that he didn't try to kill other people.
Yeah,
now
yeah.
it's personal because it's me.
Yeah.
Not that it wasn't personal because I was there.
I know exactly what you're saying.
To the point where it's revenge time. So I come out of the tent and they're like, okay, I'm going to go do something to him. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm payback. I can't, put a grenade in his pants in front of everybody, but it's going to be something. And I got about 60 yards to make up my mind what it's going to be. So as I get closer to him, and then someone else from another side starts trying to get to him, he's just laying on the ground and apprehended there, and they're trying to get to him. Like, why'd you do this to my friends, bro? And I spend my time holding them back and not executing my hasty plan. Probably a good thing. Yeah, I wouldn't be sitting here if that. Yeah. Anyway, so that's when they hand me the weapon, and I put it on, say, smell and all those types of things. So, and I didn't clear it because I knew that if that round that was laying by my tent came from this weapon, then the numbers on the back of the rounds would match. They call that a dotic, that they would match. So I didn't want to mess with that magazine. Exactly. That it came from that weapon, that lot, all those things. So I took the weapon back to my tent where the brass was, put a guard on it, told him, guard this. I'm the only person that can relieve you. Then he's pulled over to the side. I remember them asking him a question, asking him why he did it. And he said, to keep y'all from killing our women and raping our children. So I had to pause for a second. What is our? Who is our? I mean, I see this guy wearing this uniform. It says Army. I know you had to take the same oath I did to wear that uniform.
He's a sergeant. He's not like newly
Well,
in.
that too. Yeah. But who is our? Then it hit me, based on his last name being Akbar, that, our meant, the women and children of Iraq, and more importantly, their religious belief. Yeah. So that was his reason for doing it.
Now, in the aftermath of all that, how long until you guys find out what happened, to the individuals who are hurt or killed? Like, when does that start to sink in?
Yeah. So from a timeline perspective, I say it took about 75 minutes for this whole thing to happen. So people being alert on the radio, helped expedite this in terms of the casualties, in response to knowing that grenades and ammunition were missing and who was missing. We had always done, accountability checks on stuff or whatever. So, but because we did that in training, it worked in this particular case, this combat situation, right? I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
Thinking about when you guys start to, as you've caught the guy, you sort of neutralize the threat, right? And then that adrenaline might start coming down a little bit, and then the aftermath of that, you feel, that people that we know that we work with were injured or killed in some cases.
Yeah, so we knew from accountability standpoint of who was injured and all those things, and who was more severe than others. Time kind of, passes away. It gets daylight. We have CID shows up on the camp. They take him away, begin their investigation. As soon as it's daylight, we go to that closest cache to check on our casualties over there. We had a number of walking wounded. They were wounded by shrapnel, not enough to be evacuated, or they didn't allow themselves to be evacuated. Get evacuated. So they had to be treated as well. So we kind of all went over there together. Some guys were in surgery, some guys were about to go in surgery, and some were coming out of surgery. And so we had an update on them. And then, it's by phone, we were able to talk to the, I guess I should mention, if I hadn't, I guess I did that. Sorry. That one helicopter
had to go like
that
75 kilometers.
Yeah. So we got an update from them, and then learned one of our guys one got shot point blank in the back had died.
How many people were killed in that?
So one guy, we had two Air Force LNOs. They got shrapnel pretty good. One of them ended up had 83 grenade shrapnel holes in his body. He died 2 days later.
And then you mentioned the crew of the British fighter jet.
Yeah.
So is that 4 people?
Correct.
In total?
Yeah.
And how many injured?
13.
What happened to Sergeant Akbar? Where's he at nowadays?
Yeah, so the trial happens 2 years from that point. Actually, 25 months later, April of 2005. So a pivotal part of what we learned in the trial was that he had written these things in his diary. And normally I bring this with me and read it verbatim because it's things he wrote. So I'm not paraphrasing. So now I'll have to because I don't have it with me. So he had written, so first and foremost, people pull triggers and people kill, not a religion, not a ideological influence. People pull the trigger. Yeah. He had written in his diary that I do not like the military. In 1993, he wrote this. I do not like the military. I suppose I'm just anti-government. A Muslim should see himself as a Muslim only. Their loyalty should be to Islam only. 1996, he writes, it is my goal to destroy America. Destroying America is my greatest goal. It was my goal as a juvenile. While in college, my life would not be complete unless America is destroyed. 1996, he writes, anyone who steps in front of me shall be considered the enemy and dealt with accordingly. 1998, he joins the Army. So this was planned all along, unbeknownst to us. in February 2003, remember this happens March 2003, he writes, I'm not going to do anything as long as I stay here at Fort Campbell, but as soon as I am in Iraq, I'm going to try to kill as many of them as possible. Now, he didn't know when we are going to get the ammo. So as soon as we got the ammo, and that the ammo came just hours before this attack, he volunteered for guard, and then he launched his attack. And what was strategic about the attack was he, in his mind, thought if I take out the head, the body will follow. I take out the headquarters, the motivation, spirit, all those things of the rest of the unit will follow. And it worked for a second. I'll get to that. So first and foremost, where he was guarding the ammo, he walks 300 meters across the desert to the headquarters area to attack the headquarters. Now, had he continued with his statement of trying to kill as many as possible, right where he was guarding, there were more people there of his unit. There were more people. And he could have thrown grenades into those fest tents that slept 100 people and just fired in there and killed a lot more. But he had the mindset or the strategy to take out the head and the body would follow.
Well, did he think that he was going to blend back in?
Yeah, I don't know about that. This is his plan. So I don't know. That's what he attempted to do. I'm glad you brought that up because after the attack, like I said, he ran off. They couldn't see who it was. They saw someone run off. And then I say that in passing, as people are passing me and I'm telling them where to go, in a security position around the top, that he passed right in front of me. My mind keeps seeing this slow motion thing of this face that wasn't in the headquarters, but I wasn't like, come here, where it wasn't that. It was just like, go put security, we're under attack. But I had that vision of that. Didn't look at me, just a side view. So he went to blend in. And then from that point, he had gone to another bunker. There were several people in that bunker. So again, if the modus operandi is to kill as many as possible,
he could.
There was sand bottoms in his bunker. He had this protective mass carrier, still had frag grenades in it, could have pulled the pin, dropped it, and just walked out. And they would have never known the difference. But he didn't. They began, someone in there began to take account and build personnel, and everyone kind of said who they were except for him. And when asked about it repeatedly, he just got out of the bunker and left. Then he went to that other bunker. So even when the intel officer, Major Warren, went to the bunker where he was, there was another person in the bunker with him. But that person had no idea what had happened and who it was.
The timeline there surprised me because some of hearing the story and putting the pieces together, it sounds like an opportunistic attack in a way, like spur of the moment, not well thought out. But then to hear this, he spent 5 years in the Army before executing on this, with the stated goal to do something like this, and that he was that patient and did all that.
I was thinking in the very beginning that, okay, hasty attack, ammo just happened to come that day. He happened to be on guard, but no, no one wants to be on guard. No one wants to be on guard duty. So he was on guard duty, volunteered for that. And it was him and another soldier, but he's the sergeant. So if a sergeant tells, a private, okay, you go to bed.
Got this, man.
I got this until we get relieved. But that's what happened. Private's like, you sure? Yeah, it's an order, go. He's gone. But that left him there by himself.
So, and the title of your book makes a lot of sense. The embedded, especially. Embedded enemy. That he was that far in, like to hear it's a sergeant. I was thinking in my head, okay, maybe this is someone who was already in and who was then radicalized in some way. But no, somebody who built a military career to position themselves for just exactly this.
But then radicalized. Don't forget that part. That did happen.
But before he was in the military.
Before he was in.
That's what I'm finding. Sombering, right?
Yeah.
That he was able to put on enough of a show for all that time
and
to make it that far.
that was part of the reason for the book. The first part was I want the world to know that it happened and that it happened from the inside, like how it happened. This is aside, if you've made up something fictional, that makes sense. But this isn't fiction. And then, his reasoning and how he got there. So he just used the military to commit a terrorist attack, unbeknownst to us. And we pride ourselves as leaders, especially of knowing our people very well, so we can look out for their welfare for them and their families. So that's the thing that troubled me. Like, how do we not know this? How do we not know? There had to be a sign. There's always a sign, but only if you're paying attention. Yeah. So I used to say, I'll be honest, blame that lower level of leadership of not being able to pick up on what he put out. But, in the end, I guess I'm wrong. But here's the thing that he did put out, and that we are on the eve of fighting a war. And like I said, over 95% hadn't been in war before. Now, he was known to be a loner and all those types of things. So if you're in this setting of combat, and if you had to do mandatory training or whatever, he would come do that. But if there was come play football or some activity that you didn't have to do, then he wouldn't do that. In my mind as a leader, if you repeatedly don't come do these other things, first time you might get away with. Second time, because of this environment, we're going to fight a war, I'm going to you and saying what's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the answer. I don't know what it's going to be. Mom could be sick, family member, blah, blah, blah. Wife struggling at home, family, something. You got a phone call and anything. But your behavior tells me something's wrong. I don't know what it is. And your behavior doesn't tell me exactly what it is, but it tells me something. So I say that certain people's behavior, what they're putting out there, that's the whole situational awareness part. They're giving you something, but are you aware enough to see that there's something there? So that behavior begs a question to me. It begged the question of what's wrong. Maybe we're going to hear this family is wrong. Maybe we're going to hear I'm scared to go fight in combat. But that behavior begged the question, in my opinion, that wasn't asked. Now, it wasn't going to be, I'm not going to go play football with you guys because soon the ammo come, I'm going to try to kill you.
Of course.
Yeah.
But something there could have been.
The behavior begged the question. And I think in all these attacks, all these things that are happening, in most of the cases, there's something there ahead of a time from a behavior standpoint that begs a question. We have to ask the question.
Yeah,
If I come into this building, I'm sorry. If I come to this building with something that looks like a gun case, I have to ask, that begs a question. It may or may not be one, and I may not ask you directly if it's a gun in there, or I may say you're going hunting after work, or I may something. It begs a question.
Do you, so this whole event, which by the way, before we started filming, you were telling me that the people injured in this were not awarded Purple Hearts.
Yeah.
Almost like this is not recognized as an action of an enemy.
Right. And those statements in his diary, in my opinion, attest that he's an enemy. Had it not been for those things, then there wouldn't be an argument about them receiving a Purple Heart. So just want to read you. Yeah. And I told you what he said in his diary. So if you hear or a person says to you, it's my goal to destroy America is my greatest goal, my life will not be complete unless America is destroyed, and then follows it up with, I'm going to try to kill as many soldiers as possible, I ask you, are they an enemy of the United States? Are they a terrorist? Are they both? Or are they neither?
I'd say both.
You say both.
Declaredly so. Like making plain that's their intent.
Okay. Just like he said he would, he committed an attack that killed a soldier, killed an airman, and wounded 13 others. Is he an enemy of the United States? Is he a terrorist? Is he both, or is he neither?
I think I'm sticking with both on that.
Sticking with both. So now you know that happened on March 23rd, 2003, and you know now that it's a fellow American soldier. So now that it's a fellow American soldier, I ask you again, is it an enemy of our country? Is he a terrorist? Is he both, or is he neither?
Yeah, my thought is his whole intent on becoming a soldier was from the position of an enemy. Now, is he an American citizen? Yes, but an American citizen can end up as an enemy of the United States when they declare that and they take action to, specifically say, I'm doing this to try to destroy the United States. I think that is the definition of enemy. And then the way he goes about it was to create terror. So I think that's clear.
If you were to pick up the Purple Heart regulation, especially after this attack, there's a lot of vagueness in there in terms of enemy of our country. We take an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. If you were to ask anybody associated with that, generals, whatever, what is a domestic enemy? All the answers would be different. If I lined up 30 generals and they didn't hear the other one, after 5, I'd say, look, let me give you the other guys and what they said, because you might want to just say that instead of making something up. Because you think you know.
Yeah.
But what you think you know, whatever's going to come out of their mouth, it's not in that regulation. That regulation. So here's what the regulation says right now. And I began to pursue this, is that the attacker must have been in communication with a foreign terrorist organization, and that the attack was inspired and motivated by that communication with a foreign terrorist organization. That was put in the regulation in 2015. This attack happened in 2003. So when I submitted the packet for them to receive the Purple Heart Award, that's the response I got about this 2015 thing, right? They didn't address from 2003 to 2014. Didn't say anything about that. 1. 2, there's this thing called, it's a mandatory training, mandatory level 1 anti-terrorism training. What should be in that training?
Mandatory one level anti-terrorism?
Yeah. What should be in that training? Well, loaded question. This attack is in that training.
Sure.
So if it's not a terrorist attack and he's not an enemy of our country, why is it in your anti-terrorism training?
Right. And the first course, not like the other.
Right. The mandatory. So you think about these guys that were still in the Army afterward, they would have to go to this mandatory training, and they're going through it, they would see that attack. So you're telling me that this is terrorism, but he's not a terrorist? Because if he's a terrorist, then he's an enemy of our country. And if he's an enemy of our country, then we should be receiving the Purple Heart. So that was in the packet for the Army and Air Force to address. They didn't address that either. So that time period from 2003 to 2014 didn't address this thing being in the regulation. All they said was this whole 2015 thing that has been added had to be in communication with a foreign terrorist organization. Now, why is that there? In 2009, same thing happened. Same ideological influence based on that person's religion. But because it was on domestic soil, obviously got more attention. Correct. Fort Hood. Got more attention than all those things. And he was in communication with a foreign terrorist organization. Now, that happened in 2009. They didn't get the Purple Heart immediately either. Took until 2016 that they were awarded it based on the 2015 update. So, but a delegation of politicians in Texas went to the Secretary of the Army and said, hey, this is wrong. They should receive the Purple Heart. And like I said, they knew that he had been in communication with a foreign terrorist organization. So that being in the regulation now is keeping these guys from getting the Purple Heart, although not even affiliated. Not to mention that based on what he said and what he did in the world today, or how the world has evolved in terms of lone actor attacks, just because you government couldn't fathom that a soldier could do this, well, it happened.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you're responsible. Well, it doesn't mean that you have harbored terrorists within the organization. He just outfooled all of us. Okay, you're supposed to learn from that.
Yeah.
Not hide behind that. So don't deny the award because he was smarter than everybody. He was just smarter than everybody. Don't let it happen again. But because you didn't address it, it did happen again.
So 20-some years later, we're still
fighting.
Still fighting to get that recognition.
Yeah. Now, I will say, so I got that response from them in 2023. So last in their last regime. Now, I don't think the regime has anything to do with it. I think, people are making this decision. So, but definitely the last Secretary of the Army and the last Secretary of the Air Force. because it was those people they were responsible for this. So to say they said no, those two individuals said no. But that any human, that's why I ask you directly that question about that. Because if you hear it that way, that's what he said. And that's what he did. So I already told you. And then I did it. So if anyone else had done that, and pretty much they're saying, okay, if you were in communication with a foreign terrorist organization, military or not, then you're an enemy. But because he didn't talk to someone prior, I can align. You don't even know what I'm aligned with right now. And I don't know what you're aligned with from an ideological influence. So we can get down with whatever that is, and we can do whatever we want to based on that. Even though I'm aligned with it and you're aligned with it, doesn't mean I've had communication with them. I don't have to.
Right. Or it doesn't have to be two-way. I mean, I can hear what someone's saying.
That's it.
And be radicalized by it. It seems such an unfortunately arbitrary line to draw.
Right.
As a non-military person, as a citizen, well, I would have always thought the Purple Heart should be, a word to recognize people who were in harm's way in defense of the country. Mm-hmm. That seems pretty obvious to me that the people who were preparing to cross the border in an invasion, a military action, were attacked by someone who declared themselves an enemy of the United States. It seems a no-brainer that obviously they should be awarded that. But this is why I'm not, in charge.
I say that Osama bin Laden arguably said, it's my goal to destroy America. Now, no one person can destroy all of America. I don't think you can push a button and destroy all. He might destroy parts. He destroyed parts. Akbar destroyed parts.
Yeah, I think there's a similarity there, and I'm surprised with the way that that is shaken up. But maybe, maybe there's some hope in the return.
I fully believe that this administration understands everything that I just said. More importantly, everything he said. He said it, not me. He did it, not me, based on his ideological influence and his plan to do it long before he joined the military. Anybody can see he's an enemy of our country. So those two former secretaries, they could have taken that to wherever they needed to get it fixed. But just humanly looking at it and reading it, like we have this in our anti-terrorism training. Okay, one, just because he wasn't communicating with a foreign terrorist organization, he
this is where regulation just seems silly. Like
a human can figure that out. So those two allow black and white to influence this, knowing they can go to whomever and get it changed.
Disappointing.
Extremely. Yeah. So, there was a trial, and he is, obviously he was guilty, and he's on death row at Fort Leavenworth. And no one's been executed since 1961. So, kind of good luck with that. But in the end, no, that's justice for the victims. The Purple Heart Award is closure.
Right.
They deserve that.
Yeah.
And they're like incredibly humble and never going to say that. They're going to tell me, but they're not going to be on social media. They're not going to be, hey, they're not going to do that.
Sure. I can imagine.
And no, they shouldn't have to either.
Did he ever express any kind of remorse or change?
I think he said at the trial, I'm sorry, but how can you be sorry? Oh, and I should mention, it's in the book. I should mention that, no, you can say I'm sorry or whatever, but if you commit this attack in 2003 and then you're incarcerated waiting for the trial, so 2004, I want to say sometime in 2004, they took him from his cell to meet his lawyer. He's all handcuffed and everything. Meets his lawyer to take the cuffs off. Well, while his lawyer left the office to go get a file or whatever, he sneaks out a pair of scissors. So when the MPs come back and get him, he stabs one of them in the neck, just short of killing him. So come trial, when you sit there and say, I'm sorry, come on, you just try to kill another person.
Yeah.
Like anytime you'll get an opportunity, you're going to try to kill. So
yeah, it sounds like
I don't care what comes out of your mouth. You might have just not said anything.
Right. The actions speak.
Remorse for which one?
Right.
Yeah.
So in the aftermath of that, as you reflect on it and We talked a little bit before we started filming about situational awareness, that being a topic now you speak on. I mean, what are the lessons that need to be learned from this?
Yeah. If it happened inside the close-knit brotherhood of the armed forces, it can happen in any campus, community, or organization at any time and anywhere. Domestic terrorism is our new reality. So we have to begin as society to believe that it can happen, and begin to put things in place, but that the whole mindset of any one of those things that I mentioned, organization, academic, institution, or place of worship, the thing is never going to happen here. I think Steve say that. It's like me going back to Haiti. It's probably going to happen because you kind of made it happen. But what you don't know and what we didn't know, out of all this, that whole uniform, okay, cool. Oath, okay, cooler. But we don't go home with people at night. So we had no idea what he was putting in his diary, what had been in his diary. We don't go home with people at night. So we don't know what their ideological influence is. We don't know how they get down. They come to work and do anything. What are you doing when they're going home? And this is 2003, so social media is not like it was now.
Sure.
So that's the first part of that. And that whole thing of not going home with them at night is the thing that I want people to grasp. And that's the thing that got us. That we just got fooled. But I go back from a situational awareness standpoint of young leadership picking up on what's given. And that whole behavior thing that we had to pay attention to, and some of it begs the question. So the first thing is trust no one. Because I trusted. I trusted the oath. I trusted the uniform, and it backfired. Let me tell you how fast trust went out the window. We had that whole day after people evacuated, like I told you, went to visit and all that. The whole idea of taking out the head and the body will follow. We had some soldiers kind of along this wall and they were devastated and all kinds of stuff. And I, get up, get out of here. Go someplace else on this campus, the big campus. You're not going to do that here, because it had affected them. And I'm thinking, ain't no way in hell we can cross the border with this unit. They can't fight.
Be ready for combat.
Yeah, they can't fight. Get out of here with that stuff. Go agree someplace else. Don't do that here. But my point is, it worked. You attacked the headquarters, took out the head, and the body had begun to follow. So the trust went out the window, to the point where later on that day, I had a platoon of our own soldiers guard our headquarters. That next night, but again, I told you how the perimeter set up and the guards. They're guarding the headquarters from the rest of my unit, of my people. Like, you almost got me once. You're not going to get me again. Not going to happen again. And I will tell you that those guys, I listened to them. They were pulling guards like we were already in Iraq. Someone come up, halt, who, was forceful. There's our own people.
Yeah, I'm sure that undermines the, I've never been to combat. I imagine you want to go into combat with a insanely high level of trust in the guys next to you.
But I didn't need to tell them how to do it or what to do. They knew what had happened. So the trust went out the window right away.
Yeah.
So I say, trust no one. Now, I know people are going to think, trust no one. Come on, Bart, we got to trust somebody. I don't know that you have to. You probably want to. Maybe you have certain expectations and it's not fully trust. Here's what I don't want people to do, because I know that trust no ones are going to ding, ding, spark something in them. I don't want you to develop this whole, I'll trust them till they give me a reason not to. There's a huge part of the population that operates that way. So don't do that. Next is observe, listen, and report. Now, I think you got to get two of these. You have to observe it or you have to listen to it in order to report it. So here's the story. I got out of the military, went straight to Hollywood to work as an actor and military technical advisor. I found a side gig as an apartment building manager for an apartment building. So I got a free place to stay. I got paid to do this job. Except for three people were students at UCLA, which is right across the street. I mean, right across the street. So I kind of ran it like a barracks, right? So I took over. I came out this door one time and this light was supposed to come on automatically and it didn't. So I said, okay, I probably need to inspect the building, the lights or whatever, and outside these exterior lights. So I got a pen and paper, came outside, started writing stuff down. I'm looking, go back in, come out another door, right? After the second time, I said, if anyone's watching me right now, they should think this is suspicious behavior. I'm casing. So I go back in. So now I say, well, I might as well do the interior as well. So I go to different floors and all that. Get to the 5th floor here. Freeze! Well, I'm not sure if you've been on the other side of freeze, but I think we know what that means.
Yeah.
And they're at my back. I've been around long enough to know don't turn around, make certain moves. You know, they identify themselves as the LAPD, blah, blah, blah. Put my hands up, drop what's in my hands on my back. I'm handcuffed. I'm on the floor. They say you fit the description of someone that was called in. I said, no, I am the description because I already told myself that someone was watching me.
You knew.
Yeah, that's right.
You look suspect.
Yeah. So I'm an apartment building manager and I was inspecting the building. So anyway, they got my ID, see I was a sergeant major. I said, I just want you to come this fast the next time with as many reinforcements. I had 5 police officers for someone armed with a pen and piece of paper looking at a building. Okay, I digress. I won't get into that. But my point is, someone was observing and someone reported. Now, did the dispatch escalate it to 5 police officers showing up? Or all of them just happened to be in the area at the right time? I don't know. But in my opinion, I lauded the person who made the call.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, they did the right thing. So that's the observe, listen, report story for that real quick. I know we're getting a little short on time. Know your neighbor. Not only just know the person beside you, where you live. I mean, your coworker, the people in your building, fellow students, fellow parishioners. You try to know who they are. Befriend them in some way, because once you do, they just begin to talk.
Yeah.
I go to a gym and people talk all day, talk all hour. But once they figure out that you will communicate with them, they tell you everything. You know about how many kids, you know where they live generally. You'll find out a lot of things. People start talking to you. So try to get to know them. Listen, don't just hear. College campus. These students, sophomore classroom, they're in the classroom and they get on the subject of, it's criminal justice class, they get on the subject of guns. A few of them say, I have a gun, I have a gun, I have a gun. One of them says, I have an AK-47 that's in the trunk of my car. And they keep on with the class. There's an adult professor in this class. But one person hears this because they were listening and says to himself, that sounded a matter of fact. Like, no kidding right now, this dude has an AK-47 in the trunk of his car. Right. And the kid who said it looked like Matthew Broderick and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like that type of innocent, he might have a water gun in his car, you know. So after class, that student who was listening comes to me and he says, hey, in the class, this happened. So-and-so said this. Sounded a matter of fact to me. I don't know what you're going to do with it. I'm just telling you. Class is over. I get the student, let's go to your car. And I don't physically go with him, but another guy does. They get about 100 yards from his car and he says, I just want you to know before you get to my car, I have an AK-47 in the trunk. Now, no ill will was planned. He was supposed to link up with another student to take it over to that guy's dad's house who lived in a rural area. And they missed link up the day before. But the mistake was made by running his mouth.
Yeah.
So in this day in class, and when they're talking about guns, that was the day for you to not say a word. Yeah. So it doesn't slip out. Couldn't help himself. But my point is, you have an adult in there, but it took a 19-year-old who was listening, not just hearing.
Right.
Because if by listening, it sounded a matter of fact. Your gut, your strongest thing. But we kind of overlook some of those things. Sometimes people need a stethoscope in their gut connected to their head. Like, oh, that's telling me I need to really listen to this as opposed to ignoring it. Yeah. You know, you reveal a lot of stuff by paying attention to that. What's another one? Let's see.
Well, the gut's a big one. Like that's a lesson I've learned as I've gotten older. I oftentimes try to approach things very logically, and I've not given a lot of deference to my gut. But as I've gotten older, I found out I'm like, my gut reveals situations in weird ways before your brain will tell you like, yeah, I should be worried about that. A lot of times that just doesn't feel right. And a lot of times it's wrong.
Right.
And things are fine, but there have been scenarios where something's been wrong and my gut told me before my brain recognized it.
Signs is the last one. These attacks happen and people say, well, I wish there was a sign or we didn't see a sign. the part of Texas, Santa Fe, Texas, high school shooting. The student wore a shirt that said "Born to Kill." So there's a lead in. Eventually, they made him stop wearing the shirt, but he consistently wore a black trench coat. So if I say black trench coat in high school, what does that mean?
Columbine. That's what I think of.
So if you know that, why didn't the administrator at school know that? So allow him to keep doing it. But with that, again, some behavior to include what you're wearing begs the question. Like, why do you wear this every day? It's Santa Fe, Texas, dude. It's 90 in freaking April. It's 85 in March. Yeah. And there's no rain. But in the end, we didn't see a sign. Okay, 10 people dead and 10 people wounded later. The sign was there for you all along. And it's that type of behavior, especially in these school shootings where it's always right out there in front of them, but they don't pay any attention to it. Same one in Florida, they call that Valentine's Day massacre. This guy had already gone to the school, already graduated or didn't go there anymore or whatever, but he was posting on social media, a gun. But he came to the school frequently, even though he didn't go there anymore. But that behavior and people seeing it, fellow students should have been going to administrator and said, hey, this dude keeps coming around. He's posted on social media that he has a gun. But they didn't do it. Now those students are all in now. But the signs are there ahead of time.
There's I understand two sides of this. So I've talked a little bit about my EMS life, and we talk a lot about situational awareness and safety because you're going into unknown conditions on every time someone calls 911, right? And it's not uncommon that people are hurt or killed in scenarios where they're just not maintaining that awareness or thinking, hey, I could be walking into a threat. But then there's the other side of, some people would say that's a very cynical way to approach the world. I'm mostly with you. I think it's a realistic way. I mean, this is the reality. Domestic terrorism is a threat, and it's happening all the time. And it's happening to a lot of people who wouldn't have thought, the news story after every time is interviews with people saying like, I can't believe it happened here. I can't believe it happened to this community. Yeah. It's everybody.
Another thing is, I always thought that I always knew something that's the gut. The gut said, so it's either one of those two.
Yeah. There's the phrase, like, it's always exactly who you thought it would be.
Right. But it's 2025. So we can't, it's easier to think that it is possible versus it not being possible. And just to be aware. What's the worst that could happen? I guess if I'd have ran when they said freeze, okay, that would have been a bad thing. But why am I running if I didn't do anything? So don't run if you didn't do anything. They don't come at you saying freeze for parking tickets. So there's no need to run if you didn't do anything. So that's the worst that could have happened in that particular time. So that's why I laud the person who made the call. But we just, again, it's 2025. We can't just keep dispelling the things that are put out there. We have to be proactive and approach. It's not, having the ability electronically lock doors in schools and all that type of that's part of it. But the humans are the ones that can prevent this. I say that we are the first line of defense. We, the people, are the first line of defense. We're the ones closer to it. Those students who saw the Valentine's Day massacre shooter post himself with a gun on social media, his friends, they saw that. They just didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
Now, after it happens, oh yeah, he's posting it. Okay, it's kind of late, but
you guys were that first line of defense and it didn't hold up.
We are the first line of defense in every situation, just about. It's over 90% of them are coming from the inside. So it is the student, it has been the professor, it is the co-worker.
Yeah.
They're not just walking down the street saying, hey, let's go in here and do this. Sometimes, but not the majority of the time.
So Bart, the tradition here on the Watchers is, because we deal in hard topics, right? We're talking about things like situational awareness for detecting domestic terrorism, things of that nature. I try to keep an optimistic spin on things. Certainly how I approach my own life, I try to remain pretty optimistic against the backdrop of, the scary things that are out there. I always like to ask folks, as the parting question, where do you find optimism?
God.
Yeah.
And look, I survived this attack. It's by virtue of watching a golfer play golf that I like. So every day after that is a blessing. So I'm always optimistic. I think that even in our own inner ability to make things happen that we want to happen, if we have that mindset, and whether we have all the resources or not, if we approach it that way of we want it to happen, I mean that's the battle. It's in our head. So once we flip that, it's game on to get us to that particular thing. So I'm always optimistic.
Well, Bart, that's a great note to end on. I appreciate the time you spent with us today and sharing all that. And it was a pleasure having you on.
All right. Thank you for having me. Appreciate being here.
Thank you. Perfect. Sorry we ran a little late there, but thanks for joining us on this episode of The Watchers. For more great content, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out our channel. We'll see you on the next one.